Mounting my Canon EOS M50 onto the top of my second screen, I did here as a zoom or webcam. So I theoretically do have the screw pot, which I could mount on here, but it would be probably an ugly solution. What I also do have is this ball head. I do have multiple of these, and I can already mount it onto this here. Now, what I thought as of a few minutes ago is that probably one of the easiest solutions would involve some kind of cable binder solution, because this would be cheap and I also could mount it very easily, and also would be black. So I probably mount it like this, so in reverse order. I also just realized that I could also mount the lens itself, which I could also use to connect two of these ball heads, and in the middle basically connect a cable binder, which I would then connect to one of these threads on this grid here. But this seems to be a smaller thread than this one, so therefore this one here only goes in here. And now what I now did is I just took a cable binder and bound it basically around this traverse here, and then this in the middle of the lens and the camera. So it is now hanging basically, and as you already might see, the screen is also available. Of course it's not on the right side, which I would be used to, but because of the camera, not of the camera, but because of this here, I do have more space to move it basically downward if I mount it the other way. So of course I now still need to connect the cables. Since I do want to mount it as a webcam, I need to remove the normal battery, which I hope might be possible. And it is. I replaced the battery with the dummy battery I have from the network adapter I already have. Not network, but just battery power adapter, which I then can power via USB. And I also already tested that an extension cord with USB might also work. This is a data, but of course the other one is also data, since USB is usually data. But so let's first try to plug this in. I'm not entirely sure which direction it actually goes. Maybe not this one. So let's try the other one. Also, I was able to pull it in. So now, or to put it in. So now we can close the latchet here. And because you can take out this rubber thing here, you can then plug in, so you can turn this away, and then I can take the power adapter and just plug it in. Now it's plugged in. Now I will probably move it either to the side or to the back. To the back probably makes more sense. Then on the back I already have a few rubber bands as cable ties. So I now just connected these two. The extension cord, which is not that long, but it is the longest extension cord I still have, because I've already used all the other ones for other purposes here. Now obviously if I want to use this as a webcam, I also have to plug in a USB cable to the camera, so the camera has micro USB. So now here I have a few options. I could either go this route and go towards my USB hubs, which are basically in this drawer, or I could also maybe just use one of the charging hubs or the charging plugs on my hub. Actually, I realized there is only one, so I think one here is a charging port on this USB hub, and so we'll just try to use a normal port, because I don't need all of these. And let's try to see if this is enough to power the camera. So now trying to turn the camera on. So the camera is now turned on, and now I turn on the hub. Let's see if the camera also turns on. Nope. Oh, I actually turned it off, so let's try it again. Yes, it does seem to work. So I just corrected the exposure a little bit. If I zoom in here, this is what it now looks like, if it would focus actually. So this is what this angle would look like. It of course would be in this format, but for Zoom calls it would be beneficial probably to have it like this. And since I do already have my phone set up here, which I can also use to record vertically, just not as a webcam, even though there are a few solutions out there which allow you to use this as a webcam and then record it in, let's say, OBS Studio, which is a screen recording software that also allows you to record external cameras. Now, a few things are missing. First of all, we need to align this desk again. What I also need to connect is the camera itself with USB. So we have the cable here. So this is the longest USB micro USB cable I have. Unfortunately, it is yellow, so it doesn't really fit the entire look of my studio. And I think I also had some issues with this just being a charging cable, but nonetheless, I still have it here, so there might be a reason why I have it here. So on the side of the EOS M50, we find these two ports. We find HDMI as well as USB. And this, the lower one, the bottom one, is actually the one you want to use. And then you can just plug a USB cable in. And it seems to work. The only problem is, since the camera is upside down, it shows me the image upside down. So first of all, the orange cable apparently works. It's from a UE boom, Logitech UE boom. Then the next thing that seems to work is that the exposure of the camera is set, because I set it a little bit lower, seems to also be transferred to the notebook. What I also just realized is I could take the camera and maybe put it up here, and then I would also have a slightly wider angle. Or maybe I could move this whole thing a little bit into the back, but it's probably not that possible. Now, despite the camera showing up in Windows and also in Windows Camera, it still doesn't show up, or I couldn't get it to show up in OBS Studio, which is the software I would be using to record video directly onto my hard drives here. So in total, I don't want to call this a success yet, but I think the angle seems to be fairly good. And as you already saw, the exposure seems to be also transferred, despite my phone now just overexposing. This also would mean that in the same setup, I would have one 16:9 video feed and one 9:16 video feed. And this is the one I usually use to record video if I'm standing here. Looks like this with the other lights turned on, but usually I have these lights here turned off. These lights here. So the usual video feed directly from my phone down here looks like this. And from up here, I cannot show it to you on my phone right now, because, well, it's just my phone recording. In case you're wondering what the microphone solution is, I do have a Zoom H6, which is, or can be at least, connected also via USB, so it acts as an audio interface, and it is then connected ideally also to my notebook, which then I can use to record directly onto my notebook, as well as with an output, with a 3.5 audio jack output, which I currently am using. So I'm using this output down here, and as with a TRS on this side and TRRS on this side adapter. And you can see this because it's these 3 rings and the other side is 2 rings, because the phone obviously needs an additional input in the form of a microphone, not just a stereo output. Additionally, because the Zoom has 2 outputs, 3.5mm, I can listen to this here on the headphones I usually have here, and I then just can plug in whenever I need to check the audio. The whole idea is for the future. I mean, currently I already can't use this keyboard here and this mouse with this phone here. The problem is that I do not have an established proper connection, despite the fact that I obviously can connect my phone all the time. It is just that the phone connection is not that stable, and also the transfer rate from phone to this here is not that stable. So ideally in the future I would record either with this camera or with this camera directly into a software like this, and from the software I would store the files already onto basically the files which I could then use to upload. Because currently I'm recording here, then I have to transfer all the files, and then I have it here. And I also manage currently most of the files and merge them on my phone, which is obviously, this means partially that I can use my notebook at full speed all the time, because there is no rendering process in the background, because these happen on my phone when they happen, but I also try to avoid them for the reason that they take a lot of time. Not specifically by me, but they just, 1 hour video, for example, sometimes renders on my notebook at least for maybe 40 minutes. And on my phone it's a little bit less, probably because it's more optimized towards the files the phone itself is recording. So here the final result. Fairly easy to mount, and I can also just detach it. I close the loop here, obviously, and it is just a normal cable tie.